Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Psychosocial Wednesdays, the first one after the summer break. First and foremost, we want to thank the IAAP for supporting this Psychosocial Wednesdays in its 5th season. Psychosocial Wednesdays, as you know by now, I guess, is a production by Jungianeum, Contemporary Initiatives for Analytical Psychology and Neo-Jungian Studies, that was founded by Stefano Carpani. Before I come to today's topic and speaker, I want to update you on a couple of new publications by Jungianeum. First, we have out the new myth of analysis for a neo-Jungian analytical psychology. In this book, Stefano Carpani is taking possession of James Hillman's title as a tribute to Hillman, as well as a proposition of a very own new view of the new myth of analysis. Then, by Routledge, it has been published here. I have it here. This is the book. The Absolute Freedom, Individuation and Individualization in Second Late Modern Societies. In this book, the fields of analytical psychology and sociology come together to examine and explore contemporary social theory and the concept Stefano Carpani calls absolute freedom. In the meantime, the links are posted in the chat, so feel free to go there. And ultimately, Jungianeum has launched the second yearbook this summer. The second issue is full of interesting essays and poetry that explore a diverse range of themes. We have, for example, artificial intelligence, the US elections, Hamas, Israel and Palestine, replacement children and death, the mafia, and many, many more topics. Good. But now to today, we have Björn Vedder here, and he will talk about fathers of the future. And what enables him to do this? First of all, he's the father of 3 daughters, but also he's a publicist and curator based on Lake Ammersee in Munich. His expertise spans philosophy, contemporary art, and literature. Vedder has extensively written on visual arts, literature, opera, and theater. His recent works, and by that I mean books, all touch upon societal issues, as you will notice by the titles, which they are named Rich Rebel, Solidary Bodies, or The State of Being in the Countryside. Next year, Pink on the Magic of a Color will be published by HarperCollins. The thing is, all his books are only available in German so far. I just translated those titles, so that you get an idea of what he's doing. And tonight we will hear about the evolving concept of fatherhood in contemporary society. Björn, we are very happy to have you here, and welcome to our Psychosocial Wednesdays. And we are all, I guess, mothers and fathers equally looking forward to what you have to say about this topic. And after the presentation, there will be time for discussion. So, Björn, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ludmilla. I'm very happy to be here. I'm not an academic in a strict sense. I just write essays about my life. And a few weeks ago, I did a reading out of my latest book, and the guy who organized the panel, he said, Björn Vedder, he writes something like a biography in essays. So, and what I'm going to present you today is something around that. The topic of fatherhood came on my mind when I got my 3rd child. It was in around 2020. And when I was thinking about what I'm doing when I am a father. I'm a father of three girls. They are now 4, 6, and 8 years old. And I felt a little bit strange in my role and in my position, as I couldn't relate too much to the traditional concepts of fatherhood and to the way the fathers around me played their role as a father, which was mainly a mixture of the old patriarchy and providing, but with some kind of unhappiness among them, and the feeling, as they told me, that they couldn't really relate to their children, and that they felt to be in something like between Scylla and Charybdis, which is having to provide for the family and being outside, and so losing contact to the children, but on the other hand wanting the contact, but then not being able to provide, and then by society, and honestly speaking, by their wives, being forced to stay in that role of a lot of work and earning money and providing and so on, as this seems to be a very important point of traditional marriages. So when I looked at the literature that I could find about fatherhood, it came to my mind that there was two parts. One part was something like a psychological literature that dealt with all the trauma and sadness and unhappiness of fathers with their role. And on the other hand, as there was a huge stream of something like neoconservative literature on fathers that said we have to be real men again, we have to teach them how to fight, and we have to be better than the others and stuff like that. So, and I thought maybe there could be a possibility or a role of fatherhood in between that, or at least um, that was a question. If there was something that I could find out, and one thing that struck me in the literature was that the movie Fight Club, I think you saw it, most of you, or you know the book. I read it again when I wrote my book, and I recognized that all the people who organized in this Fight Club were sons of absent fathers. You know, there's a sequence in the novel where the writer says, Tyler Durden, it's a guy who's played by Brad Pitt. He says Tyler never knew his father. He was always absent, and every time his children were 4 or 5 years old, the marriage broke up, and he went on to another woman and opened another family, like another franchise. So I had the impression that this kind of masculinity that is often sometimes, I think, wrongly named as toxic masculinity is rooted in a lack of children who are not fathered, and that the glamour and the appeal of this tough guys for older people is the appeal of a role of fathers who don't know how they can uh, play their role. But I think this is one of the most important aspects of fatherhood, is that fatherhood is not, most importantly, a biological character, but it is something like a role that you play on something like a stage. So I conceive families like a theater troupe where everybody plays a certain role. And what made this plausible to me was that nobody is what he is by himself, but you only become a father through your children. You only become a brother by having siblings. You only become a mother by having a child. So, like the roles on the theater that emerge by the way that you are addressed by others, it's the same in the family. You are. I haven't been a brother before my sister came to life. I haven't been a father before I got my first daughter. My first daughter hasn't been a sister before my second daughter came. So what we are in a family is not something that we are by ourselves, but by the way we are seen, we are addressed by others. And that means that we play some kind of role, and that we play some kind of role means, for me, that we are not identical with that role. It's like being on the stage, and that means when you're at home, and when I'm at home and when I'm playing the father, I take care of different aspects of my character or of my personality than I do when I'm at work or with my friends or that stuff. So this strike me because I recognize that the idea of being authentic towards my children, like to show them who I am really are, and so it's nonsense. And I read about a lot of Maslow said, well, I want my children to see who I really am. And I think that's a bad idea, because when you go on a stage and you go into a play and you see Gustav Gründgens as Mephisto or whatever, so an actor in a role, you don't want to see who the actor really is. You want him to perform his role. And I think when I wondered what is the most important role of the father, there's a traditional answer that I really like, and the answer is that the mother gives the mother gives birth to a child in a biological way, and the father brings up the social person. So the question would be, what kind of social birth is it that a father can give to a child? And the idea of playing a role of somebody who gives birth to someone in a certain social aspect shows that it cannot be the role of the classical patriarch who enforces the law, who is something like a deputy of the king or god also. And it cannot be a person who is only providing for your family, but because giving the means to live is not the same as preparing someone to live. So there's a difference in that. And in my book, I dealt quite a lot with the problems that the father has if he wants his children to teach law and order or give them money or something, and they all came up to something like a triangular situation, like fathers and mothers they want um, they want a relation with their children which is in a dialogue. But as soon as the father is something like Sir Patrick, so as he is deputy for law and order or something, there's no dialogue between the father and the child, but it's a triangle. The father represents the law, and he doesn't relate to his child, but he relates his child to the law and the law to him. So there's always the law between them. And if you substitute the law with providing or money, it is the same. So you always have a triangular situation, and you have to get rid of the third thing or the third person in it if you really want an intimate relationship with your child. And the question then is, what could be a typical fatherly approach to upbringing your child as a social person or as a social character? And I was wondering the reason why fathers gave them money provided for them or were deputies for the law or something like that was because they meant this helps them to live their lives and to live their lives properly. But as we have seen, this destroys the relation between father and child. So I thought, what could be an input of the father towards the child, an input of me as a father towards my children, that would be generally a father's approach and not a mother's approach. So to keep these two rules, and that would be something that would really help them in life And I came across something called it's a modern attitude to live your life always from the beginning. I think I can best explain it with an aspect of the memoirs of Simone de Beauvoir. In her memoir, she writes, well, I really saw everything. I saw the moon over the ocean. I saw Fidel Castro talking to hundreds, thousands of Cubans. I am the most intelligent, beautiful a woman in the world and everything. But still, I have the impression that I didn't get everything out of my life that I could have gotten. And I still have the impression that I didn't dig all the gold out of the mine my life could have been. And this makes me sad. And I got the impression that this is a typical modern way to look at your life from the beginning and to optimize it and to see what you can get out of it. And as we can see, it is something that that keeps you from getting your life, in order to give your life a certain structure, to give your life a certain balance and harmony, because it is always open. There will always be something missing. And there's a very interesting way to look at it. The other way I found it with the philosopher Martin Heidegger. He calls it Fortlaufen zum Tode, so advance to death, which means living your life not backwards from the beginning, but from the end, which means thinking about what is it that I can still accomplish, acknowledging that also much time has gone, also, and every time I grab an opportunity, other opportunities, other fail, other doors close. So this and the benefit of that is what I thought is when you run advance to death, you make your life a whole. It becomes something that is closed, that is finished, that is balanced, and you can give your life a structure. And you can decide whether what is more important to you and what is less important to you. And based on that, you can take your life decisions, and you can, like Professor Harry Frankfurt said, you can take care of yourself. So that's why I thought my role as a father could be to teach my daughters how to die, like Heidegger would put it. So to see their life not from the beginning, but from the end. Of course, as they are and as they were when they wrote that book, very young, it would have been too much to tell them, listen, baby, you're gonna die. And but I recognized that it was very helpful for them to see that not everything can be done. So if they want to go by bike to the kindergarten and they want to play in the morning, they cannot do both because time's running out. So you have to choose between two things. And I think as older as my children get, I can teach them longer distances, not just in 2 hours, but in 4 weeks, in 8 years, in 20 years. So and I think my task when they grow up is to make the ranges longer. Think about next year, think about in 10 years, think about your death. And to give them the ability to structure their life in the face of their death and in the face of the knowledge that there will be nothing afterwards. So, and as you can see, this is the old concept, like Hannah Arendt put it, of the vita contemplativa. So not vita activa, not being in the business, not making politics, not producing anything, but stepping out of the river of life, looking at it, um, getting in a distance and a certain aspect of reflection, reflect, like getting out and bend back over what was happening. So distant and yeah, so a distant relation to life that is mostly in thinking about life. And this led me to the idea that if you want to talk about the roles of mother and father as two different roles, you have these two different philosophical concepts, which are vita activa and vita contemplativa. So the contemplative, reflective life and the active life, where you do politics, you make laws, you do, like Hannah Arendt put it, you make a new knot in the net, in the structure of the world that changes the world forever. And Hannah Arendt has often been criticized that she didn't care about the roles of the role of women in the world, and that she wouldn't have been a feminist. But I think her theory of the vita activa is indeed a theory, maybe not of women, but of a motherly approach to the world. Because what it does is to bring something new in the world, to make it strive, to make it grow, and to teach it how to do all the things that you need to do to make contracts, to build things, and to change the world in a material way of life. This means learning to live. But on the other hand, the role of the father would be learning to die. Thank you very much.
That was brief.
Yeah. I thought I give you yeah, I thought I give you a short impulse on my thoughts, and then we can talk about it.
Sure.
And if you have something, there are things I can elaborate more on different aspects if you want to.
Of course. Yeah. So are there any questions yet that people, or maybe aspects that Björn maybe shall deepen for us? You can also write it into the chat if you want. Well, the obvious question for me is, how is it working out for you and your kids?
I think it's working out pretty well, but the problem is, of course, you have to put all this vita activa stuff to the mother, and yeah, the question is how happy she is about that. But I felt it. I remember when I was living in Spain, and when I visited the monasteries, most of them had a sign, a plate on them, which said, "This monastery is guarded by the King of Spain." And I said, "What? It is very interesting or very pleasant to see that in this society, people think that it's good that somebody is doing prayers for them. So maybe we lost the appreciation for the vita contemplativa, and I think it would be a role for fathers to bring the importance of that back. For example, as we can see that the work we have to do as a society to survive on this planet is not so much to do things differently, but maybe to stop doing things or to do less, to renounce in what we are doing. And our modern way of life, the life from the beginning, like I explained in the Simone de Beauvoir excerpt, It is not about renouncing from things, but it is about having more and more. And I think the role of a father could be to teach the children not to want more, but to be satisfied with less.
I have a question or a series of questions.
Please.
Because our audience sometimes is called the beginning, but they warm up. There are so many people in the audience, actually, of whatever sex and gender, that wrote about the father, the absent father, the present father, the good father. You and I are fathers of 3 girls. You and I actually are separated from our wives or ex-wives. I want to stay with the first question on Hannah Arendt and Heidegger. Heidegger was a shitty father. Hannah Arendt was not a father and was not even a mother. What is the limit that a philosopher, even of a psychoanalyst who has never spent a night awake because he's no father, he's no mother, can do? How much shall we get lost in theory? Today I spent the day talking about what is the father with my patients. So I come to this meeting very charged. First question, how much should we listen to philosophers, psychoanalysts, people, when they have no real experience about being a father or a mother of whatever sex and gender?
I think that is not the most relevant aspect, because if you see fatherhood like a role in a play, and there are writers that can play the role of a queen or a king who have never been a king. So I think the question is how you can relate yourself to this idea or script, and not if the person who gives the imparts has been through the same things. And to be honest, as Hannah Arendt wrote her book about Vita Activa, she didn't think about mothers. And as Heidegger wrote Seinen Zeit, he didn't think about being a father. He thought about a way of getting rid of modern melancholy or pedia or whatever you may call it, as he had the idea of the being towards death. But my impression was that this philosophers can give me a good hint to do what I'm doing.
Thank you. I think we have a question in the chat.
Exactly. I read it out. Adina Ashraf is writing, "Hello, sir. Thank you for the great insight. What would you advise to a child whose father has totally neglected his role of upbringing, and it has totally shattered that child's self-esteem to the point that the child has become clinically borderline and antisocial?"
Oh, that is a tough question. There's one thing I talked about with my oldest daughter yesterday, because I wrote a book about the color pink, and there I have some stories about people who have to do something with pink. And one woman I'm talking about is Madame de Pompadour. I think you all know her. And so she was the mistress of Louis XV, and she was fished out of a brothel, brought to the king's palace, and managed to become the most powerful woman in France. And when my daughter asked her how she did it, I said she showed that you don't only come from your parents, but you come from yourself. And I think there are certain moments in life when you have to forget where you come from, and tend to yourself. I'm not a person that can give any psychological clinical advice where maybe this question would need this kind of answer. But from my perspective, I think this as important as I think the roles of mothers and fathers are, I think it's also important that we should not forget that we can leave our families behind, and we can be our own sons and daughters of ourselves. Yeah.
Thanks. No, we appreciate your view, definitely. You don't have to be an analyst or therapist. We have a question by Claudette Kulkarni. She raised her hand.
Thank
Please.
you.
Hi.
I appreciate what you talked about. I especially appreciated your efforts to be a different kind of father. I appreciate that very much. But what I have tried, and I want to say too, I also appreciated what you said about Heidegger. I'm a big fan of Heidegger, especially the early Heidegger. And I like what you said about that. But the question I have is this, that, no, it's confirm my speaking language. I don't know what they're doing here. Some screen just came up. But anyway, what I want to say is what I don't understand is why you describe what you did and then somehow assign it to the father. This idea that somehow the mother is biological and the father is social, I have to admit, really, really gets to me. Like, I just don't see it. I'm more with Andrew and the idea of the parent of whatever sex. So I think what you were describing could be done by a mother just as well as by a father. So I don't understand why you have this need to separate the parents by sex and give them these different jobs. I mean, maybe a couple hundred years ago that might have made more sense, but today, really?
Yeah.
So I wonder
Yeah.
if you could address that.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I see mothers and fathers not as a biological role, but as a role in the theater. And on theater, everybody can be played by everybody. And in families, it's the same. I'm not interested in the biological father role, like the one who has a penis or whatever. No, but as a certain aspect of parental addressing to the child. And between that, I like the idea to still distinguish between two roles, mother and father, who I wanted to be separate by the approach they have towards the child. And I got struck by the idea that the Vita Activa by Hannah Arendt is something like a motherly approach as you bring something new into the world. But I think that this doesn't have to be understood like being a biological woman.
Well, both parents contribute something biological to the child. So using that
Yes.
to sort of highlight the mother, I still don't get it. Like, I don't understand why that needs to be described as father stuff, as opposed to, this is a parental role you could take on.
Yeah.
The being to death, the thing, I appreciate that, but why make it be something fatherly? It could be motherly.
No, I don't think so, because I think that's the opposite role, like the Vita Activa. That reminded me very, very much to a motherly role, like bringing something bringing something new into the world. But maybe it's a more metaphorical understanding of mothers and fathers and not symbolic.
Well, what would you say?
Biological, yeah.
What would you say to two gay men who are raising a child?
I think they should think about how they play the two roles.
But why label one motherly and one fatherly?
Sorry?
Why would one of, I mean, it sounds like you're still saying that one of them would have to take on this quote motherly role. Like, I don't I don't know what you're saying with that.
So when we see it like being on the theater stage, and there are roles, and I think it's good that if someone takes on this role and the other one takes on this role, because then the play works better. But this doesn't mean that the next day, on the next scene, the actors cannot switch.
Well, but that's like saying there's only two rules. I mean, it's pretty a binary way of looking at things.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my question. Okay.
Yeah. So and you think as such should have thought about more roles, like, or should have talked about more roles, or what is the idea?
Right, because there aren't
Yes,
just
but I was just talking about the father.
I don't think we'll ever agree on that one, because I think the role that you described, which I admire, could be taken on by anybody. I don't think there's
Yes.
anything fatherly about it. I think it's just the father. If you want to say the father is, we say father because it's a male person, you can say that,
No.
but it's not about something that is attached only to men. Just
No,
there's
that's no. We agree on that. It is nothing that is attached to men. It is just the name for the role that I described. And it can be taken on by anybody who wants to take it on.
but it gets you stuck in this binary, very sexist way of talking about things.
Yeah, this is because they have this binary setting of mothers and fathers, which derives from the setting of vita activa and vita contemplativa.
I'm sorry, the sound is not great, so I couldn't quite
Sorry.
hear
Yeah,
you.
I'm very sorry. So the most basic binary option I have is vita activa and vita contemplativa. And then I address these roles to motherly and fatherly. But by that, I'm very sorry, but I don't mean to be sexist, like this can only be meant by a man or by a woman. I don't care what sex people have.
So why label them that way?
Because
Why not just
it is
why not just label them as this is a parental role that someone could play,
yeah,
along with other kinds of roles, rather than
yeah,
labeling.
yeah. It is something that has happened on my way of saying. I was thinking about what could be the role of a father, and I came to this, and then I thought, well, it doesn't have to be a man. But then I thought it was a good idea to communicate this stuff, because
If I can step in, because we could go on and maybe waste precious time, and I see that there is Susan and TB who wants to speak, but I really think you're saying the same. You're just coming from different point of views. Well, of course, Claudette is coming from a beyond gender point of view, and Bjorn is coming from a certain literature that is using, for example, the man and the masculine to describe a role that Andrew Samuels has described as beyond sex and gender. But anyway, this just was to move on and perhaps have Susan.
Thank you. I just want to say, I think that we are up against a question of pluralities. And I think that might be one of the issues of how can we all expand beyond where we have been into a more plural kind of position, as well as being present in the way that we feel we want to be present. It really is moving beyond the envelope. And that's what I wanted to say. Our challenge is plurality and how much we all can really accomplish that and do that, not only for our children, it's really for ourselves and our society as well. So thank you.
thank you.
We have another hand up by TB.
Hi, everyone. My take is not necessarily binary. I think there needs to be a tango between the two parents in the relationship, or it needs to have or the parent needs to have a limit, because what I see with my wife is that we complete each other in terms of pushing back on the partner when it goes too far. I tend to exaggerate at times. She tends to exaggerate at times, and we need to balance each other. But on the uh, uh, action and contemplation perspective, I believe everyone has their own uh, added value, aptitudes, capabilities, discoveries. There's not necessarily a male thing and versus a female thing. I am more playful. Usually, men are playful. That's how I see it. Usually, the fathers are the playground makers. Not maybe at the young age, though. I've done that, but I'm playing sports with the kid. I have a son. I may be biased because of it, but usually the dads are with the fun part of the aspect. The mothers are the coming into picture usually with the safety. Men are more risk oriented. Maybe women aren't. I have no idea. People are different, and they tend to put into the picture of the kid the added value that comes from their lives, and the kids become based on the two parents in an independent way of this, let's say, the other ones. It's very directly related with the personal approach coming from the two parents that are coming into the raising of the kid, rather than the, let's say, the theory that comes out of it. I definitely agree. The more theory you get, the more perspectives you get into being a parent, the better you'll try different things. The more you'll be open to other aspects of life, and more open to things. But I don't see necessarily everything working. You're testing, you're seeing if it works for your kid, for yourself, and the way it works personally, that's what you integrate. So I don't know. I'm working with Indians. I totally believe that Kali is the mother of it all, and I totally believe that a mother created Earth, and a mother made it all happen. The structure, the limits, the everything. But that's part of the belief that I'm built on. But then on this part, I believe it's a journey with two people holding hands in coming up together and making a kid work. My 4 cents.
Thank you.
Thanks for the comment. Björn, do you want to comment on the comment, or otherwise?
No, please. No.
Otherwise, we have, for example, Petra von Bechtolzheim in the chat. She wrote something, but she also wants to say something, doesn't know how to raise her hand. So if you want to come forward, you have to unmute yourself because you're muted. We can't hear you yet.
I do that. Do you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Okay. So first of all, I came too late, so maybe I of course I missed something, but just taking your two terms of vita activa and vita contemplativa, and I'm also familiar with Hannah Arendt, not so much with that contemplativa part of Heidegger. Anyways, I'm a mother of 5 children, and I do think that it's really a big mistake to think at all. I like very much this pluralistic idea of the personality. It's not that I like it, but it's just that if we all think about ourselves, how could we ever split action from this kind of reflection and contemplation? It's not possible. And I do think as a mother, you are actually the first one to act out also the contemplative part. It's also the mentalizing, what you do with your child. You are actually reflecting upon everything while you're in action. The problem might be that as a mother, I mean, I certainly did experience that, you might be too busy being able to have enough space to really, how to say, cultivate that part, the contemplation part. Maybe, I was very exhausted because I was overwhelmed with all the activity, the active life. But anyways, there was so much going on the contemplative part all the time. And it's not enough in my eyes, in my opinion, to just talk about these two aspects, or even just separating them, because I do think also with regard to anything we witness, if we are in action, we are already progressing information. And to me, it cannot be splitted, this vita activa and the contemplation part. And here I come from the philosopher Ernst Cassirer, who is, showing us how we are cultivated in a way that sensation and action always go together. I mean, maybe this was a little bit too much, but I just wanted to contribute this as a living mother who also feels like a father then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think I disagree, because maybe when I look at how my for example, my wife, she always thinks, well, I have to do this, and and everything's bad, and I have to think about this so this child can do this and stuff. So there's a lot of practical thinking, like finding the right finding the right means for what you want, but this kind of practical thinking is not the kind of contemplation that I mean. Because this is something like, how do I get these things done? This is totally vita activa. What I think is, what is this good for in a broader sense? This is a different kind of contemplation, I think, and this is something that's different, in my opinion, to your kind of action and contemplating what you're doing. This is some kind of, I think, some kind of practical reflection that is different to the.
Well, thank you for your answer. I do think we completely disagree in this point, because my way of looking at human beings cannot be this way. I just say it's a question of whether you have the space to elaborate on that. But I surely never, ever would be just a practical person when I'm taking care of another human being. This is just too much theoretical. And I know what you say about not having time or so. But the aspect of contemplation, really, I mean, it goes really very far beyond just it's a mindset, it's a way of looking at human beings. You can never separate it. And I do think it's very, very dangerous to do so, because in a way, I even would put it this way, you are in a way dehumanizing women this way. And just, I mean, this is very sharply put this way, but I want to show you where this might be leading to. But of course, I appreciate the very aspect of thinking about contemplation and activity. Okay, but
Maybe once again, I'm not talking about men and women. I'm talking about certain roles in a family. I don't dehumanize anybody if I say there are different aspects of thinking about the life or the things we have to do. And I didn't say that women or mothers don't contemplate. Like You know, the mothers that you are, that's the mother of my children, that my mother is. I'm just describing two roles, and with that, two ways of thinking or reflection. And this is something that I wanted to separate, but you misunderstood me if you said me like I want to say that women don't contemplate. That's not what I said. Thank you very much.
It's good that you say so. Thank you.
Thank you, Björn. Thank you, Petra. I also want to read a bit from the chat because there's also a little discussion. Alex Badescu writes, I do not find it sexist. Masculine and feminine traits are actually a thing, and mothers can be masculine from time to time, but by nature, I do not see it. Adina Ashraf also writes, everything in this universe has a binary nature. Even animals are masculine and feminine nature. Sure, humans can be androgynous in nature too. So that's on that aspect. We have another question that comes from a personal side from Mikhail Stankiewicz. Could you mention an example where you introduce a concept or a thing of vita contemplativa to a 5-year-old?
Yes, that's what I said in my talk. Is when my daughter in the morning, while she wants to play, but she wants to ride her bicycle to the kindergarten, for example. And I say, well, look, you cannot do both of it because the time is limited, and if you do this, you have to leave that. So you don't have to. So you cannot think about situation from now on, but you have to think from the end on, when it's 7:45 and when you have to be there before they close the door. And that is something that. So this is a very simple thing, but if you put it in a long way, this is what is being towards death and taking care of yourself in this kind of way, and this is the kind of reflection I mean, and yeah, things like that. In my experience, children get that, and it's very hard for them because, as we all know, children don't want to renounce from anything that they want to have. But I had experience that they really like it when they see that in a certain field they can take care of themselves and they can decide between this and that, and in the end, their decision and what they do is congruent, so it's overlapping with what they want to do or who they want to be. Yeah.
Thank you. I think Ste is there and waiting to ask.
Björn, you can see how these digital salons are real and really digging deeper. So I thank you for being here, because this might be a different audience than the one you're used to. I just published this book, Absolute Freedom, which is really trying to bridge what we Jungians call individuation and what sociology called individualization. That is a philosopher, connoisseur of sociology, know very well the work of Beck, Giddens, Bauman, that basically in the 80s brought something totally new, which was the concept of homo optionis. Basically, Western society was moving beyond the traditional society of the early 20th century. Well, for example, could be a binary society, but in these homo optionis or liquid society, you can choose your gender, your nationality, to marry, separate, remarry. You are, somebody would say, a young author, but very visible in Germany. Could it be that what you're trying to bring is avant-garde in the sense that you had an intuition of where society is going after 40, 50 years of globalization, liquidity, good queerness, broken queerness? There is not a return to binary standards, to pre-liquidity. but using perhaps Hamlet and Shakespeare from time is out of joint to time is set back in joint means society is experiencing something new beyond traditional society, beyond the liquid society, that is perhaps what you're trying to describe. So starting that the father can be of whatever sex and gender, but has a certain role and identity, the mother, the same, and disease perhaps to enhance, contrast what is truly happening in society. Question mark. I called you vanguard.
Yep. I don't know if I understood the question right, but an aspect that I feel about this openness in our society is that it is not productive in finding a good way of life and in taking care of your life, and the idea of the vita activa and the being towards death, and that made it so appealing for me was that it limited options. And I think it is, to me, it is something kind of illusion that we have so many options, because in fact, once you do something, you set something in motion. It's like writing on a page. The first word you can write whatever you want, but the second you have less options. The more you write, the less options you have. And I think that this sense of limited option is something that we lost in our society, maybe, and that's something that is being remembered, so that our options maybe are not that limitless as we thought that they would be. And that again is something. So if we talk about society, that strikes me is that even now, in a lot of aspects like climate change or stuff, we act like as if we still had all the options, like my 5-year-old daughter who thinks in the morning she can play and shower and this and that, and then she can still go to the kindergarten with her own bike. But I mean, she learned that she cannot. But I have the impression that we as society, we still, in some sense, like this 5-year-old, think we can still do all this and this and this, and maybe later than that, while our time is running out.
Thank you.
Jordi Golfreisha, please.
Hello, greetings from Madrid.
Hello.
I am raising, if you wish, an experimental point, the situation of a single parent family. And I am curious for the female input here, for the single mother family. I've been for 3 years a single father family of late adolescents, quite energetic ones. And in my experience, beyond the father and mother roles, there are others which are important. Sometimes you have to play the grandfather or the grandmother.
Yeah.
It's not so simple. And it takes to deep breath and look for wisdom and inspiration to get the right reaction. Otherwise, if I am allowed, it's like making these experimental Italian theater plays that one actor plays all the roles. You're not going to do anyone right, but better get the right one at the right moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Having a 17-year-old girl having cystitis or cystitis and driving her to the hospital, you reach as a parent a level of closeness that nor you or your daughter expect nor want. But that's life.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Leah Phillips in the chat asks, I wonder if there is risk for having too much of these traits, no matter who provides the guidance. Do children need a balance? Question mark.
Is this a question to me? Oh.
Or whoever feels like.
Well, yeah, an aspect of the vita activa is that you have to make decisions, and that these decisions help you to find a balance. And there's this so that the idea would be to be congruent with yourself, so that what you want to be and who you are is very close to each other, and that you really decide for what you want to do. But that means to get rid of other other stuff. So not being hybrid or well shaped.
Thanks. Another question by Peter Dunlap, please.
So I've been reading Andrew Samuels since the early 90s, and his investment in the plural psyche and in our community's commitment to multiplicity. I see our beauty and our brilliance. And when I focus on the practical impact of our times, I look back at the 2016 election here in the United States, when I was certain we were going to have the first woman president. I was certain. And my heart was in my throat, and I was filled with hope. And the next moment, when I discovered that Trump had won, I can't describe to you the dread I began to feel and have been feeling every day since. And I am curious, Bjorn, what you think. But what I'm wondering about is if there's some necessary narrowing that we missed, and that had we caught on to some necessary narrowing, Trump would never have been elected and would not have a chance at re-election now. But that there's some way we've missed the climate change narrowing that you mentioned a few minutes ago, and all of the other ways that we have lost track of our own trajectory. I don't know that I can be more articulate than that yet, but that's the piece I have so far.
Thank you. Well, when I read the books, there was a book by American author by the name, it doesn't come to my mind right now, I had to Google it. The name of the book was Nobody Hates Trump Like He Does. And it was about Trump's childhood and the absence of his father, and when he came to the military academy, and was so very good at tidying up his drawers and stuff, and so the author said, well, Trump is this kind of guy as he is because he never had a father, and then he had something like a hybrid character, so he exuberated and he ran out of control. But maybe when I read it, I thought maybe it's not that the Americans have a president who lacked a father, but those who voted for him, I beg your pardon, maybe they lacked a father too, because all these traits of believing in this nonsense theory and making up the world like you think it should be, and all this hate speak and all this affection and all this lack of self-control. It is something that I would, if my daughters behaved like these people, I would feel like I failed as a parent.
So, as a social scientist and psychologist, I hear you focusing in a way that I agree with about those who favored Trump. But what I'm curious about is what those of us on the left, progressives, liberals, what we missed that allowed this to happen. I kind of want us liberals and progressives to be the ones that show up and take responsibility So you're focused on what they did and how they see the world and how they weren't fathered appropriately. And I can't help but wonder if we on the left have, whether you call it mothering energy or fathering energy, I don't want to take that one on right now, but whatever that narrowing energy is, how did we miss the opportunity to provide that energy?
Well, I think because it's a trait of our modern attitude towards life, that we just see it from the beginning and not from the end, and there hasn't been any appeal for renounce or narrow things or don't do it or let it or something. So this has always been always been a taboo, and maybe it has been taboo because it's something like a compensation. You know, our modern society, as it runs forward, it every day it produces losses. Every day we lose something, like the gas station or the shop or this or that or that. But all the things that we lose, we are not allowed to mourn for them, because we have to praise it in the name of forward. And this idea of progress and forward, going forward, something like a bright future is awaiting us, like the GDR said, vorwärts immer rückwärts, so always forward, never back. With this idea, there comes the aspect of we don't have to renounce anything. I think we'll be bright and even more and more and more. And I think this is really a lack of a modern attitude or a modern look towards life, that we totally totally grew up in this vita activa sense and really left this vita activa, this contemplative and narrowing way behind us.
Well, so then our obligation is to support mourning.
Yes. Doing loss. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no questions in the chat. Are there more questions with a hand raised? If not, I think we could also leave it at that. On two people agreeing. I don't remember a discussion as lively and vivid like this one tonight. That's what we're here for. Thank you everyone for every position and comment. And thank you most of all, Björn, for being here, stating your case. It's very interesting. We say goodbye. Oh, there's more happening in the chat. Yeah, it's a thing. The thank yous come in the chat. So thank you, Björn, also from the audience. We say goodbye for today, and we hope to see you in October. Ruth Williams will be with us then, talking about soul and spirit in Jungian analysis. So thank you, audience. Thank you, Björn, very, very much. And
thank you very much.
Pleasure. Good night.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.